Hello, friends. Stay with this video till the end, because you're about to discover 5 of the craziest and most mysterious events in history that will absolutely blow your mind. Number 1, Poon Lim. He was born in China in 1918. In 1934, when he was just 16 years old, he left China and moved to Britain in search of work. For the next 8 years, he worked on several British ships. Then in 1942, he joined a ship called SS Ben Lemon, a British merchant vessel that carried supplies for soldiers during World War II. But wartime voyages were never safe. In November 1942, the ship left Cape Town, South Africa, heading toward America. There were 54 people on board, including Poon Lim. For the first few days, everything went smoothly. But on November 20th, 1942, a German submarine suddenly attacked their ship. The explosion was massive. No one had time to react. The SS Ben Lemon began sinking rapidly. Poon Lim managed to grab a life jacket and jumped into the ocean. Everyone else on board died as the ship sank deep into the sea. Poon floated in the open water for hours, until he spotted a small wooden raft drifting nearby. Somehow he managed to climb onto it. Inside, he found a small storage box with a few cans of food and biscuits. Those supplies kept him alive for about 10 days. But then the food ran out, and rescue never came. Alone in the middle of the endless ocean, Poon Lim had to survive using only his instincts. He started catching fish with hooks he made from the nails of the raft. And since he had no way to make fire, he ate the fish raw. He even drank the blood of the fish to stay hydrated. Incredibly, Poon Lim survived like this for 133 days, over 4 months, all alone in the Atlantic Ocean. He even survived a terrifying storm that could have easily taken his life. Finally, in April 1943, he saw a small fishing boat nearby. It belonged to a group of Brazilian fishermen. Poon Lim somehow paddled toward them, and the fishermen pulled him aboard. They took him to Brazil, where he was hospitalized in the city of Belém for a month. Once he recovered, he was sent back to Britain. When he returned, the British authorities were shocked. They couldn't believe anyone had survived. They thought everyone on the SS Ben Lemon had died. No rescue team had ever been sent. But Poon Lim's 133-day survival at sea became one of the most unbelievable real-life survival stories in human history. Number 2, it was the year 1922. In the German state of Bavaria, there was an isolated farmhouse known as Hinterkaifeck. This area often experienced heavy snowfall, and the farmhouse stood in the middle of vast, silent fields. A family of 6 lived there. Andreas Gruber, 63 years old, his wife Cecilia, their widowed daughter Victoria Gabriel, and Victoria's 2 children, Cecilia Jr. and Joseph. They also had a maid named Maria Baumgartner. Victoria's husband had already passed away, so she and her children lived with her parents. On April 1st, 1922, little Cecilia didn't go to school. The family, who usually attended church regularly, also didn't show up that Sunday, or for the next 5 days. Neighbors noticed something strange. Smoke still came out of the farmhouse chimney, suggesting someone was inside. Yet no one had seen any member of the family for days. Concerned, a few neighbors decided to check on them. When they entered the barn, what they saw was horrifying. 4 dead bodies lying under a pile of hay. Shocked, they immediately called the police. Upon investigation, officers discovered 2 more bodies inside the house: Maria the maid and little Joseph. All 6 members of the household had been murdered. But the most disturbing part was this. It seemed like someone had been living there even after the killings. The fireplace was still warm. Freshly cooked food was found in the kitchen. The farm animals had been fed regularly, and the stable was clean. It appeared that the killer, or killers, had stayed in the house for days after the murders. Neighbors also told police about something eerie Andreas had mentioned before his death. He had said that the house was haunted. Strange events had been happening for months. Footsteps in the attic, mysterious noises, and objects breaking on their own. About 6 months earlier, the family's former maid had suddenly quit, terrified after hearing footsteps in the attic at night. She also mentioned seeing footprints in the snow leading to the house, but none leading back out. When police heard these accounts, the case became even stranger. They investigated for years, questioning dozens of suspects, but no one was ever charged. Even today, more than 100 years later, the Hinterkaifeck murders remain one of Germany's most mysterious and chilling unsolved crimes, a tragedy that once froze the entire nation in fear. Number 3. March 23, 1994. Russia. An Aeroflot passenger flight, Flight 593, was on its way from Moscow to Hong Kong. On board were 75 people, 63 passengers, and 12 crew members. In the cockpit were 3 experienced pilots, Captain Alexander Kudrinsky, co-pilot Andrei Danilov, and another first officer. What no one knew was that this flight would become one of the most shocking examples of human error in aviation history. Captain Kudrinsky had brought along his 2 children, his son Eldar and daughter Yana, on this international flight. About 4 hours after takeoff, co-pilot Danilov took over as Captain Kudrinsky decided to take a short break. The plane was flying smoothly on autopilot, cruising thousands of feet above Siberia. While resting, Captain Kudrinsky thought it would be fun to show his kids the cockpit, how airplanes fly, what the controls do. So, he invited them inside. This was strictly against aviation rules, but he didn't see any harm in it. His daughter Yana sat in her father's pilot seat. Co-pilot Danilov noticed but didn't intervene. Then Yana asked playfully, "Dad, can I move the control column?" Her father replied, "Sure, but don't touch any buttons." The plane was still on autopilot, so when Yana tried to move the control column, it didn't respond. She gave up and stood aside. Then her brother Eldar sat down and decided to try it himself. He held the control column for just a few seconds, but that was enough to disable the autopilot. The plane switched from automatic to manual mode without either pilot realizing it. In autopilot, an aircraft flies itself, maintaining altitude and direction while pilots monitor systems. But in manual mode, every movement depends on the pilot's hands. Now the plane was in manual mode, and no one was actually flying it. Captain Kudrinsky, still distracted by his kids, told his son, "Okay, now let's try turning left." But Eldar, confused, pulled the control to the right instead. Within seconds, the plane started banking dangerously. The warning alarm sounded. Kudrinsky and Danilov jumped back to their seats and tried to take control, but it was already too late. In less than a minute, the plane had dropped 14,000 feet. The pilots fought desperately to stabilize it, but the aircraft kept spiraling downward. Just 2 minutes later, Aeroflot Flight 593 slammed into the mountains of Siberia, killing everyone on board. Later, investigators recovered the black box, the flight recorder that survives even after a crash. When they listened to the cockpit audio, they discovered the shocking truth. The pilots had allowed children to sit at the controls during flight. The incident stunned the entire world. How could trained, experienced pilots be so careless? Captain Kudrinsky wasn't inexperienced. He was a veteran pilot. But a moment of poor judgment cost the lives of 75 innocent people. Number 4. On April 28, 1988, a routine inter-island flight was preparing for takeoff in Hawaii. The aircraft, Aloha Airlines Flight 243, was scheduled to fly from Hilo Airport to Honolulu International Airport. It was a short flight, just another regular trip between Hawaiian islands. There were 95 people on board, including 6 crew members. The flight was piloted by Captain Robert Schornsteimer and First Officer Madeline "Mimi" Tompkins. About 23 minutes after takeoff, when the plane had reached an altitude of around 24,000 feet, a massive explosion shook the aircraft. In an instant, a large portion of the fuselage roof, nearly 18 feet long, ripped off, exposing the passengers to the open sky. Passengers could see the clouds in the blue sky above them as the cabin lost pressure. Because almost everyone had their seatbelts fastened, they managed to stay in their seats. But loose belongings were sucked out and powerful winds roared through the cabin. Tragically, one flight attendant, 58-year-old Clarabelle C.B. Lansing, was blown out of the aircraft during the explosion. Her body was never recovered. Shattered debris flew through the cabin, injuring dozens of passengers. The pilots, despite extreme conditions and deafening noise, fought to control the crippled aircraft. Fortunately, there was a nearby airport, Kahului Airport on Maui. Just 13 minutes after the roof tore off, the pilots managed to perform a miraculous emergency landing. Out of 95 people, 65 were injured, and one crew member, Clarabelle Lansing, lost her life. This incident became one of the most extraordinary survival stories in aviation history. Never before had a commercial plane suffered such massive structural failure in midair and still managed to land safely. Investigations later revealed that the aircraft had been overused. It had flown tens of thousands of short flights over the years, which caused metal fatigue in the fuselage. The repeated pressurization and depressurization cycles had weakened the aircraft's structure, leading to the disaster. After the accident, the damaged Boeing 737 was retired permanently and never flown again. The Aloha Airlines Flight 243 incident remains a chilling reminder of how maintenance, fatigue, and luck can decide the line between life and death at 24,000 feet. Friends, this is our new channel. If you're enjoying the information we share, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Thanks for watching.